A tropical cyclone is set to develop in either the South Pacific or the Australian region basin this weekend and into early next week. So here's a look at the latest from Force 13 Oceania. The potential tropical cyclone threat for the Coral Sea is now rising yet again, with a 75% chance of cyclone development. In my head, and looking at the model's conjecture, we are definitely looking down the barrel of our next tropical cyclone. If it is named in the South Pacific region, it'll get the name of Nat, and if it is named in the Australian region, we'll be getting the name of Jasper. So keep listening for those names because they could be coming around very, very shortly indeed. So let's just jump straight into the GFS model ensembles. You can see here that the storm, just an invest right now, invest 92p. It is in the South Pacific region, but it is moving due west right now at around 5 to 6 nautical miles an hour. That's about 10 kilometers an hour. It is expected to then, once it gets over the Solomon Islands, start moving more southwesterly, or in the southwesterly trajectory, and it will rapidly intensify there. You can see getting down to a pressure approaching the 970, so we could be seeing a Category 1 or Category 2 cyclone here on the Australian scale. Forecast models, you can see here the GFS wrapping this system up after about day 2, day 3. It really doesn't get going until it gets over the Solomon Islands, and then it hits those really warm sea surface temperatures and great upper level atmospheric conditions, high mid-level humidity, and also very low wind shear, and the storm will rapidly intensify as it gets into the Coral Sea. Now, what is unusual this time of the year for the Coral Sea is the fact that there is low wind shear. Wind shear is normally a big problem in the Coral Sea. It's not often that you see wind shear not being a problem for the region, but it looks like it's going to be pretty conducive for rapid development at this time. By about hour 120, we're looking at a significant tropical cyclone of maybe Category 3, even Category 4 stature in the Australian region, the Coral Sea, so large swells, a significant threat for Queensland, but then it looks like wind shear does actually get the better of this system as it moves towards the Queensland coastline before stalling off Mackay, that sort of region, and heading down the coast where, as you'll see on the rainfall run, it dumps a significant amount of rainfall. In fact, rainfall everywhere seems to be the main story from this system, even if it doesn't make landfall. Parts of the Solomon Islands could see upwards of 750 millimeters as indicated by those bright blues. Anywhere in the whites is more than 200 millimeters of rain. At those deep blues, we're looking at more than 500 millimeters of rain. And those whites do extend over the Queensland coastline as the storm moves through around 10 to 12 days from now. So this is a long-term significant rainfall threat for Queensland and something we really need to be watching very closely. The entire eastern coast of Queensland could get very significant rainfall totals over the next 10 days of at least 50 millimeters. And in isolated spots, we could be seeing totals up to 250 millimeters. So flash flooding is certainly a threat. Now we're going to jump into some more forecast models on windy.com. Stick around to the end of the video and you'll see all that is happening with this system. Alright, so here's a look at the Access G3 model run. This is the Bureau of Meteorology's model as this Cyclone Invest 92p located around here north of Vanuatu is going to move into the Coral Sea over the coming few days. It's actually going to move over the Solomon Islands first, and you can see that now with the low pressure center here starting to wrap itself up as it moves over the Solomon Islands. A really weak low pressure system at first and really disorganized because of the mountainous terrain on the Solomon Islands. But I reckon Tuesday morning when this system gets out of that sort of area, it'll be able to wrap itself up quite nicely. Here, winds of about 30 knots or so. So it's getting those gales around its low level center around Tuesday morning and into Tuesday afternoon. So I reckon Tuesday afternoon local time is when we're going to see this system named, and I believe at this point it is in the Australian region, so it will get the Australian name of Jasper before rapid intensification looks like it ensues from that. Wednesday morning we're looking at winds of around 55 knots in the center of this system. That's a Category 2 tropical cyclone, sustained winds of 55 knots. So we're looking at a significant storm here, and it could really give the southern Solomon Islands a bit of a nasty scare here. Honiara looks like it might escape the absolute worst of this system, but as it moves further into the Coral Sea, we're going to see this system strengthen even further. Conditions are prime for rapid intensification, let me tell you. And by Thursday, we're going to be seeing this system probably approach peak intensity. Winds approaching 60 knots here, but it could be far stronger. In fact, some models are daring to suggest that this system could attain wind speeds in excess of 115 knots at one point in its life. So we could really be seeing a very significant tropical cyclone out of this. Category 3, Category 4, Category 5 right now on the Australian scale. scale, it's a possibility, but it's a really low chance. And if it does get to Category 5 status, it certainly will not be affecting any major land areas, at least not in the next week or so. Beyond that, what the system is going to be doing, it's going to head towards sort of Mackay, Rockhampton area on the Queensland coastline before moving basically parallel to the coastline, actually, moving south, basically, tracking right down to around Brisbane, will be absorbed by another low-pressure system, and it will race off down south to New Zealand, as we covered earlier on in the video. Significant wind gusts throughout the Coral Sea will be a threat as well. Boating will be very nasty, but anywhere basically between Brisbane and Cairns, especially Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's not looking good at all. Winds sustained at least 30 knots, probably approaching sort of 35 knots as well. Significant wind gusts will be a threat as well, and that is just for the entire Coral Sea. When you get a system like this, it will just dominate the weather conditions in the Coral Sea, so definitely not looking pleasant for boating, that's for sure. Wave heights in the Coral Sea will be significant, to say the least, around 4 meters or so. Once you get more into the sort of reefy atoll regions of the Coral Sea, you could be looking at smaller wave heights, but again, boating is not recommended. It will definitely not be pleasant, that's for sure. Sea temperatures in the Coral Sea, prime for rapid intensification, 28, 29 degrees Celsius. Plenty of fuel for this system to become very intense, that's for sure. The only thing holding it back, which is typical for the Coral Sea, is deep layer wind shear. If we have a look at the upper levels, sort of towards the end of this model run here, once you get sort of south or on the latitudes of New Caledonia and Vanuatu, you're going to be looking at wind shears probably around 30 to 40 knots, and down even further south, you're looking maybe 70 to 80 knots. That stuff will shred the cyclone to pieces, so not going to be pleasant for the storm, that's for sure, but definitely good conditions in the Coral Sea. So right now, I am not seeing anything to suggest this system cannot become a severe tropical cyclone, Category 3 or stronger on the Australian scale. And to be honest, there's not really going to be much stopping it from getting to Category 5 on the Australian scale. It's just going to be a matter of time, really, and how disorganised it is after it emerges off the Solomon Islands, because that will definitely do some damage to the system, that's for sure. I believe that is the main sort of kind of the gist of this system right now. It's not really going to be a rain threat in the next week or so, but beyond that, it's going to be a significant rain problem for Queensland, that's for sure. We could be seeing rainfall totals basically everywhere between Cairns down to maybe Brisbane, even further south than that, maybe Coffs Harbour, Newcastle in New South Wales. We'll be seeing rainfall totals approach sort of 300 millimetres in some places, but widespread totals 50 millimetres and above in the sort of 7 to 14 day period. So over the coming few days, that's going to become apparent on the forecasts, but right now it's a little bit too early to tell. We should be looking at sort of the Solomon Islands and Vanuatu for the main rain threat right now. The northern pieces of Vanuatu are going to get slammed with that sort of onshore flow from the northeasterly sort of area. So we could be seeing rainfall totals in the next 5 days approaching sort of 50 to 150 millimetres in places, maybe even 200 millimetres in some isolated mountainous terrain. But Solomon Islands certainly going to be in for an absolute drenching, up to 400 millimetres of rain possible on some areas. Honiara as well, the major city of the Solomon Islands, could be looking down for about 3 to 350 millimetres of rain as well. So significant rainfall totals are the threat right now. That's the talking point over the next 7 days for the Solomon Islands, and then beyond that, we're going to be looking at a pretty significant tropical cyclone around the 5-day mark in the Coral Sea, and then after that, we're going to be looking at a Queensland cyclone threat. So a lot to get through over the next few days. Make sure you are subscribed to the Force 13 Australia branch and the Force 13 main channel as well. Check out our Discord server, check out the merch store, become an Ultimate fan, do all of the promotional stuff. It really does help us out. But thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.